It goes under things, it goes around things, it climbs up trees, it strangles itself. And I said, that's my mind sometimes. It imagines that things like recording in progress just came out. So I just really value the fact that we can bring our attention sometimes together. And I thought about Flower Communion and I thought, bring your attention together. It might feel like all that ivy, but it can be pulled together in a bouquet for this moment and this community. Welcome, good morning. Welcome members, friends, and visitors to the Unitarian Universalists of the Chester River, where our mission is to inspire, inform, and support all who seek spiritual and personal growth and a more just and equal community. We're glad you're here, if you're here via Zoom or in person. My name is Marilee Tausig. I'm going to be your lay leader. We are lucky enough to have Dick Durham bringing us our special music and Michael Casey as our accompanist. So a surfeit of blessings. And we're always grateful to have Reverend Sue with her leadership and sharing her sermon on predictability. If you're attending via Zoom, remember there's a donate button on the website. If you're visiting for the first time, there's something in the lobby that you can leave us your name, and we'd really appreciate it if you would. There are two other announcements. One is that our meeting after church, can someone remind me? The annual meeting, duh. We're inviting you to stay with food, but if you're attending by Zoom, there is a separate link. So you'll have to say goodbye on this Zoom link and go on the other Zoom link, which was both in reflections and in an email. And the other announcement is, as I change my hat from lay leader to worship committee member, which are really the same thing, but never mind. Next week is our last week of regular services, and then we begin our summer discussions. And you'll be thrilled to know that there is a vast expanse of empty slots on the bulletin board out there. There's only one person signed up, and the idea is that worship committee people get to take a little time off. So if you feel the a little bit of air of guilt trip going on here, I'm okay with that. Please sign up. It's a very low maintenance kind of thing. We just don't ask a lot, and we enjoy any discussion topic presented any which way. Now, if you would follow along with the words in your program for beginning our service, we light this chalice as a symbol of the light within all creation. We light this chalice for truth. May the search for truth be with us always. We light this chalice for love. May the love for others be strong in our hearts. Please join us in singing hymn number 361 in the gray hymnal, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. If you would rise in body or in spirit. Our opening words are reminding us that this is flower communion. If we need any more reminders than all those flowers out there in our yards. It is called All of Us Are Beautiful by Thomas Rhodes. We come in a variety of colors, shapes, and sizes. Some of us grow in bunches. Some of us grow alone. Some of us are cupped inward, and some of us spread ourselves out wide. Some of us are old and tired and tougher than we appear, and some of us are still in bud. Some of us grow low to the ground, and some of us stretch out towards the sun. Some of us feel like weeds sometimes. Some of us carry seeds sometimes. And some of us are prickly sometimes. Some of us smell. And all of us are beautiful. What a bouquet of people we are.
Good morning. Morning. So for folks that are newer to Unitarian Universalism and for folks that have been around for a while, the flower communion, or you sometimes hear it called a flower ceremony, this is the 100th year anniversary of this ceremony. It actually began in Prague 100 years ago in June 1923. And the story we tell about the service it was began by a minister named Norman Chapek. And he had founded the Unitarian Church in Czechoslovakia. And then his family began attending churches in New Jersey, actually in Orange, New Jersey, which I happen to be born there, but just a side note. But what he was looking for is sometimes, even in the faith traditions, in a lot of Unitarian traditions that have been going on in lots of different ways, there was a tendency to rationalize faith. This is why maybe Jesus wasn't this, maybe the Bible, maybe you use reason. And in all that talking, he realized back then that there was something missing in our hearts, that you needed ritual, that you needed some symbolic way of acknowledging our routines, our rituals in life. And he brought flower communion to the United States in 1940.
It's an annual ritual that celebrates beauty, human uniqueness, and diversity in community through the blessing and exchange of flowers. It's a ritual. Rituals are something predictable in our lives. Maybe your soccer team gathers and puts its hands in the middle before they begin a game. Perhaps you have a ritual every morning of how you make coffee. There are big rituals, weddings, graduations, and parades. And why do those rituals matter? Part of a ritual is doing something the same way time after time. And those in the community, us, can feel that sense of familiar and maybe a sense of belonging. Or recall a feeling of prior years, or just a sense of presence in this moment. For flower communion, there is a collection of flowers from all, the arranging of flowers into something beautiful, the blessing of the flowers, which represents the way we come together willingly across difference, and the way we then spread beauty by taking home the flowers.
I'm going to invite those who've been asked to bring forward our flowers, including some of our students who have offered to bring forward the flowers. And as they come forward, appreciate the beauty and the difference in this community. Michael's going to play us a little music as the flowers come in. Could be from Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. Come on in. We're good. Okay, I didn't mean to. All the flowers out there can come in if there's any more. As we consider that backdrop, thank you for the team in the back. It's sort of like putting your hands in the middle during soccer. We do bless these flowers. We bless this community. And in the end, we will share these flowers with one another. Our time for centering this morning is a reading by Marta Valentine, The Golden Present. The golden present is not like the proverbial egg that expects you to sit on it and wait. It is instead a scrumptious feast to be served when you call. Look around. It awaits a response from you, one that says, yes, I see you. Yes, I choose you. Yes. The golden presence reaches for you and wonders if you'll come and unwrap its gifts. We build community each week through our words, through our music, and by sharing what's going on in our lives. Marilee will now lead us in our joys and concerns.
Forgetting to use the mic, sorry. This is a time when we all share each other's week, what has brought us joy, what has brought us concern, in brief, or we'd be here all day. I invite you to come up, and as you share your concern here at the podium, I will light a candle.
Well, I have two joys. I just went to my grandson's graduation, and he's graduated in marketing, but he finished his coursework in December. But he's now running a construction crew while he's doing this and not being promoted there. And he's only like 22 years old, and I was 32 and didn't have a job in the world when I graduated. The other joy is that I've had problem breathing, and just to go from the kitchen to the bathrooms out of breath, they started me on a new treatment, and my golly, I can walk and not even think about breathing. It just comes naturally.
That's good.
I have the joy of music. Dick Durham is here today, and on Friday I went to the fabulous concert celebrating the new piano at Emmanuel, and it was just an amazing, amazing concert with one outstanding performance after another. And the greatest joy, one of the greatest joys of that was the performance by our own Michael, playing four hands of I Love a Piano with Stephanie Lamont. It took the roof off. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Dick. It was great.
I have a joy with a little tiny concern in the middle of it. As I was bringing my flowers, I ran out this morning with my clippers, and I got a whole bunch of iris, and I noticed that they weren't on their best day. They were just a little like this. And there were all these little, I think I cut them all off, these little guys, these little shriveled up dead things, which I said, they're kind of pretty in an odd way. And I thought, as I move past my 70th year, I'm beginning to notice that a lot of things about me don't work quite as well as they used to. Singing is one thing that doesn't work quite so well. And I came in today and I noticed a bunch of different people navigating various physical difficulties. And I thought, why don't I think of myself as that? Beautiful, not at the beginning, but that I'm a part of a whole thing. And whether I'm perfect and everything works or not, I belong. And now Dick is gonna play us while I pass the basket and we share what we have with our community. music. I'm going to read an essay written by Eleanor Roosevelt towards the end of her life in 1962. I remember being a very young girl and having my mom talk about Eleanor Roosevelt in a way that meant, wow, she really looks up to this person. For some years, an unpleasant and unattractive attitude has been developed by our young people. They seem to be losing their sense of adventure, their courage, their zest in the face of the future. The British novelist W. Somerset Maugham, who was in the United States for some months during the Second World War, was greatly struck by the unadventuresome spirit of the American youth. It seemed to him that all they wanted to do was to land a secure job in an office somewhere, take no chances, and surrender any sense of personal responsibility. She quotes him, "Too frequently when I talk to students, I am met with the same questions. Why should we plan to marry and have children and build a career and plan our lives? The bomb may destroy mankind. There is no security ahead. What's the use?" The answer is, of course, there never has been safety and there never has been security. No man has ever known what he would meet around the corner. If life were predictable, it would cease to be life and be without flavor. The answer to fear is not to cower and hide. It is not to surrender feebly. The answer is to stand and face it boldly. Look at it, analyze it, and in the end, act. With action, confidence grows.
So that reading is actually from a book that Eleanor Roosevelt wrote, and it was called Tomorrow is Now. And she was writing this in 1962. It was really the final months of her life. It was the post-war era, and she was finding that Americans were more and more focused on their personal security. And she saw that what this was doing, as Americans got more and more careful, is it was distracting Americans from working on the common good. I know I was raised, I'm white, I was a middle-class kid. I was raised as a child in the 1960s. I would have been about first grade then. And I was one of those boomers. I am a dead center boomer kid being raised in these times. And what she talks about matches the signals that I remember. The reason you got an education was so you could get a good job, a predictable job. You might change jobs once or twice in your 20s, but then settle down. It would be your best bet for the future. And implicit in this message was get married, buy a suburban home, and then save so your children could repeat the pattern. I'm wondering today, what would Eleanor Roosevelt think about the direction we've taken on personal security over the last 60 years? Have we become more and more focused on our personal security, on playing it safe and taking the advantage of every single way we can to not get hurt in so many ways? Stepping back, who the heck is Eleanor Roosevelt, this woman of privilege? She had been the president's wife. Who was she to talk about security? She had grown up in incredible levels of privilege. But then I was thinking about that. She grew up with all this status. She was never going to need to worry about her financial security. Yet, like all of us, our histories are more complex. Security is way more than about wealth and status. Eleanor Roosevelt was born in 1884 in New York City. And by the time she was 10, she had lost both of her parents. Her father had been an alcoholic, and her mother had died. A younger brother died, and she was shipped off to boarding school. Her childhood contained little emotional security and predictability in the midst of all that privilege. And then she was in her 30s during World War I. 1921, her husband lost the use of his legs to polio. She was in her 40s at the beginning of the Great Depression, in her late 50s at Pearl Harbor, and by the time she was writing in 1952, it was the Cold War, complete with duck and cover drills. I know folks in this room remember those. She was writing in her own version of tenuous times, and she was so worried we were going to play it safe to our detriment. She worried that we would avoid our fears in pursuit of our personal happiness. I think there were trends that you could see then, there's trends you can see now, that we were moving to a more and more individualistic outlook. And she found, as a general matter, that fear and suspicion were counterproductive emotions. All that's true, but what we know about predictability and security is that they are foundational to our life. So it's not that there's one or the other, but we are wired to look for that personal security. We know that infants need the attention of a caregiver. They need that security. They need somebody there who is there and responsive. In his book on social intelligence, Daniel Goleman describes it this way: healthy attachment to a parent or caregiver is a crucial ingredient to a child's well-being. When parents act with empathy and are responsive to a child's needs, they build a basic sense of security. The parent-child or caregiver-child loop offers that central passageway. It really is impacting how you're wired. And that's how kids learn the ground rules for relationships. What's even more is with that security, intellectual development is framed and formed. Children learn to be empathetic when they are secure, and it feels good to us to feel that sense of security. And there's literally a rush of chemicals that come through our body when we know we are safe and we are loved. And so love and security are so closely linked. I think some of us will say, well, but I take risks. I think a lot of us like well-calibrated risks, a little travel as long as we have the travel insurance. We like to balance it out. We'll make some moves, some job changes. We might, though I don't understand these people completely. Some people like the excitement of an unpredictable, scary movie. Don't understand those folks, but we're all different. It's okay. So we yearn to feel safe enough, physically, emotionally, and socially. We bundle up, we prepare for the worst, and we keep often close to what we know. We stay on the ready, and there's also a price we pay for that, of constantly feeling like we need to be ready for something to happen well. So predictability, it's part of a well-balanced diet of values, but should it be all that we value? I was recently at the memorial service. A few folks here may know her. She's a member in the East End congregation. Her name is Edie Swallow. She died at 95 last year. And so she was someone who came of age during World War II. At her memorial service, one of her children noted that family events and excursions were never ever canceled due to weather. Adventure was to be prioritized, and so many picnics took place in the back of cars. That sense that Edie had of adventure was central in her eulogy. She passed that forward to her children. It wasn't that she didn't value security, but she considered security a launch pad for exploration. And she also thought about security. Sometimes you have, I'll say, everything you need, but it was also her orientation toward generosity. Once you've got a few of the basic covered, gratitude is lived out in generosity, and she was always a big fundraiser. Don't hold back, imagine boldly, she would say as they built the congregation in Easton. I can picture people here saying that. She was a military wife, made many transitions, and she went through the last transition to an assisted or community living scenario up in New Jersey with the same energy she had made each move, making new friends. I remember being with her at an auction event right before she left, and it was a beer tasting event. She's taking detailed notes, like, making sure that each thing in life was an adventure. So can we approach our lives with the courage that Eleanor Roosevelt calls us to, or the adventurous spirit of Edie Swallow? Are we open to what might be next in life, what might be unfolding, or are things just different now? I think we have the premise that these women faced a lot, but there was a case of an 8-year-old walking a dog in 2018 in Willamette, Illinois, 2018, just 5 years ago, walking the dog around the block, and the neighbors called the police. Who would let an 8-year-old do something like that? They weren't actually charged by the police, but Family Services did open an investigation. There are states now where it's illegal to leave a kid under 13 alone at home. And how many people here were babysitting for money at age 11 or 12? Yeah, show their hands.
For the dog too.
For the dog too. So has the shift happened because our suburban streets are more dangerous? I know I was told when I was very little, I was about 4.5, and I walked down some New Jersey street to our school most of the time by myself. Don't get in the car with strangers. How many people got that lecture? It wasn't that my mom thought there was zero risk, especially if they offer you candy. Don't get in the car. But go. You need to get to school. So I'm not sure the risks are different, but we are very focused on our children's safety and our own safety. And they actually know there are way less visits to the ER now. There are less injuries, and it's mostly because kids play outside less. They do less different types of adventure. And again, whenever we make these generalizations, it's not all one or the other, but there are patterns. And what they're really seeing in some of the kids, what they call Gen Z, the kids that are sort of under 25 today, younger than millennials, is they've become more and more cautious, more and more anxious, and they think there's probably a tie. Jean Twenge is an author who writes a lot about this, to smartphones becoming prominent about 2012, and there's just something that is happening. Some of the kids are less curious and just more nervous, and the good news part of that is they're taking less risky behaviors. They're drinking alcohol. They're not drinking alcohol at as young ages. They are making some decisions that make sense. So again, I don't read this as good or bad, but it is different. But what we know, we can do all the things we do to find that balance, but so much of life is just plain unpredictable. In her book, Becoming, a lot of folks may have read the book by Michelle Obama, Becoming. She wrote that about 4 years ago. She tells this story about her planned future with her friend Suzanne. She was a friend from her undergrad years at Princeton. And here's what Michelle Obama says. Suzanne was born in Nigeria and raised in Kingston, Jamaica. For me and Suzanne, it was supposed to go like this. We'd be maids of honor in each other's weddings. Our husbands would be really different, of course, but they'd like each other a lot anyway. We'd have babies at the same time, take family beach trips to Jamaica, and we'd be mildly critical of each other's parenting techniques and be fun aunties to each other's children. We'd laugh, we'd share secrets, roll our eyes at what we perceived as the other person's ridiculous idiosyncrasies, until one day we would realize that we were two old ladies who had been best friends forever, flummoxed suddenly by where the time had gone. That, Obama says, for me, is how the world was to be. But at age 26, Suzanne was diagnosed with cancer and died shortly thereafter. Michelle Obama was stunned. Michelle Obama had grown up with the security of a loving family. She had worked hard. She had followed every rule there was, and yet loss comes. A focus on a person's security, on our own security, doesn't protect us from such loss. I know everyone I'm looking at has faced those times of unpredictability in their lives. We are reminded, as Michelle Obama talks about, that the world as we know it can change. But do we make our decisions? Do we make our decisions? Do we operate with an underlying assumption that what I'm experiencing right now could change? Or do we tend to think that what we're experiencing right now is what we'll continue to experience? In what ways do we speculate about the future? Can we imagine making a new friend? Can we picture a new community? Can we picture that maybe we're going to win the lottery? We're going to play to do that. Are we at least open to the possibilities of change for the better? And I think predictability comes with an assumption that we need to be working on the predictability for others that don't have predictable food, that don't have predictable health care, and that all matters greatly. But my question today is, can we be too focused on playing it safe? Because I think our anxiety can spread to others. What makes sense for us as we negotiate that healthy balance? There's some parts of security, frankly, that are no cost. You can go to the dentist regularly, you can wear your seatbelt, all of that makes sense. But are there times with this continual effort to protect, preserve, and be safe keep us from looking upward, looking outward? They keep us inwardly focused. I ask that question both as a congregation and individually. Because Unitarian Universalism, like virtually every other faith, reminds us to make our choices based on our deepest values. It invites us to be guided by doing good. What are we trying to protect is an important question that we each might want to ask. Is it that we need more personal security, or we need to be looking out for the needs of others? Are we being honest about what we control and what we don't? I think the questions to leave with today are about what is it we center in our lives? Whose risks matter? Each individual, each generation, each group has to make that choice. What do we center? How do we keep vulnerable children safe from the biggest risks? How do we make sure that we plant adventure as a part of the values that we have? Eleanor Roosevelt was from a different generation, yet her words connect still. With action, confidence grows. I think it's a reminder that when we take the courage to look up, to look out, and we do it over and over, we find out the world isn't maybe quite as scary as we thought it was. Maybe that next action will help us grow in confidence. Because often our sense of purpose and fulfillment are greatest when we approach life with that outward focus. When we have a bias to say yes to what is new, what is adventurous. And when we keep a sense of a creative and relational focus in the middle. It's not that easy to face fears. But when we withdraw and hold back, there's a cost as well. It's an invitation to think about what is the common good and where that might take us, both individually and as a congregation as we near ending this year. May it be so, and blessed be. In a moment, we'll play some music as folks are invited forward to each collect a flower from our display here. We may have to move the Joys and Sorrows candles a little bit. Thinking we may. Where do we move that, Melissa? Thank you. You got it? You got it? No, maybe. Got it? There we go. Thank you. We're good. Thanks. So each of us brings something to this community, this fellowship, just as each flower brings something to this display. Before we close today, we are going to invite you to come forward and select a flower, or we can bring a flower to you. The gifts are the bounty we share. The flower we take home is not the one we brought. We receive from each of us each week. As you take that flower, think of the blessings of this community. Think of the places you look up and you look out in your life. We can now start our flower communion. Michael, you could just play us some music. Would be great. And Marilee and I will sort of stand guard at the flowers. Please come forward. You take home these flowers in love. Our closing hymn today is For All That Is Our Life. It's hymn number 128 in the gray hymnal. Please rise. Please be seated. We will now extinguish all closing words, and then we'll extinguish our chalice and have our sung benediction. We'll follow it about very quickly here. Our closing words are by Scott Taylor. May we go with courage, hungry for a curiosity that challenges and changes us, knowing that our answers are never complete and that our questions make us whole. We extinguish this chalice. The words are in your order of service here as we extinguish the flame. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we meet again. Enjoy Dick Durham's postlude as they set up for the potluck, and as you interface with folks, ask them about predictability, security in their life. Some of the questions we might have shared with during discussion if we weren't trying to pack in an annual meeting in all the different places today. But for a moment, let's enjoy Dick. eat and have their, and be back sitting in seats ready to vote on all sorts of cool things by what time?
11:30?
11:30, and we are at, I said we'd get done by 11, we did it. Okay, take care, thank you for bringing flowers. If you want to add to your collection when you go home, please do. Thank you all. Thank you, Mary Lee.